Hi, I'm Eamon O'Connell from Summerhill Vets here in Enna. For this webinar, I thought, look, let's do something a little bit different for the time of year. Let's get out on farm and see some of the real world, real life things that are going on. We're going to cover a couple of different areas of calf rearing in this video, from calving to colostrum management, hygiene, ventilation, stress, all the way through to weaning. It's for people rearing calves, it's for people buying in calves. So I'm looking forward to enjoying this video, picking up some tips, and then we'll have lots of questions afterwards. Here's where it all starts. The calving pen, the cow, and luckily enough for us this evening, a freshly born calf. We're going to talk about where the cow calves, how she calves, and what environment the calf arrives into. So if we have a look here, it's picture perfect really. Nice cow, perfectly just after calving. Calf on a nice, clean, dry bed of straw. Pen has been disinfected. If you look down the bottom, a lovely slope on the calving pen, just gentle enough into a drainage area to take any moisture away. Fresh water for the cow, and just behind me, an area to bail her up. Safety when you're calving, always very important. So how the calf arrives, first of all, look, you need to have stuff on hand. You don't need to be looking for things when you need them. So the biggest thing, obviously, is your calving ropes, and if you need it, calving jack and lube. So just behind the cow there is where this farmer always keeps his calving jack, washed, clean, disinfected, ropes hanging up, and just up behind it on the pillar, some lube. So this cow calved without assistance, calf landed on the ground. What are we looking at? The first thing in the world this calf has to come in contact with is the environment, and the environment here is perfect. You don't want this calf arriving into dirty, very messy, wet, ground. He needs to arrive onto something clean, because the bacteria he comes in contact with, that's going to frame the rest of his life. Frame his microbiome, get him off to the best start. So here, best start you could possibly get really. As soon as he hits the ground, what are we looking at doing? We're looking at his navel and make sure that's treated. Again, is it handy? There's no point in when the calf is born, where do I leave the navel dip or the navel spray? Again, in this farm, he just leaves it up on the wall, up beside the pillar. He can reach out, grab the navel spray the calf. Bob's your uncle. Cow is bailed up here. He can just check the 4 quarters and make sure they're okay. Already then, this calf is off to the best start, even before it gets any colostrum. Okay, so our cow's calved, calf's navel is dipped, mother's looking after the baby in there. We moved on immediately to probably the most important thing of all, which is colostrum, liquid gold. A plan is key. Make a plan and stick with it every time. Immediately the first thing we're thinking of is hygiene. And look, we can go with what's the best, but we have to go with what's reality as well. We're on farm this morning, lots of cows calving. Here's our colostrum bucket with freshly harvested colostrum. Is it a little bit dirty? Absolutely. And we're going to talk about what effect that has on colostrum. So the first thing we need to know about is colostrum, the 3-2-1. We all know about that. 3 litres in the first 2 hours of the first milking. But we've got to have a little bit think past that. We've got a big calf in there. Is he 40 kilos? He's not far away from it. 3 litres probably isn't going to cut the mustard there. We're looking at 4. We're looking at 4 litres of good quality colostrum, and how is he going to get it? First of all, the decision is, are they going to suck like the suckler cow, or are they going to be tubed? In reality, all these dairy calves, if you want to get enough into them, they have to be tubed. He's 40 kilos, he's going to need about 4 litres. He just does not have the energy or the wherewithal to suck that much. So we definitely have to tube him. And while we're talking about tubing, we'll look at the 2 different types of stomach tube that's on most farms. So here's the basic one that we all use. Roughly speaking, when it's full, 2.5 litres at a push 3. I don't know too many farmers that are getting 2 of these into calves. So realistically, for that calf in there that's 40 kilos, presuming his mother's colostrum quality is good enough, which we'll talk about in a second, is there enough in this bag? The simple answer is no. Realistically, you're looking at a stomach tube that can hold 4 litres or a bit more, something like this. At least then you don't have to revisit twice. You make it as easy as possible so that it can be repeated, simple. Let's talk about colostrum quality then. First of all, hygiene. Again, we've mentioned a little bit dirty, but that's the reality on farm. We're going to keep things as clean as we can, but sometimes they're not always as clean as we can. We get the milk out of the cow quickly as possible, and into the calf as quickly as possible. Time is of the essence. The longer the cow is calved, whether the milk is in her bag or in the bucket, the quality of immunoglobulins and antibodies she's going to pass on to her calf are depleting, minute by minute, hour by hour. The bacteria that's just some going to be on the inside of this bucket, they're going to deplete the quality of colostrum as well. If you don't measure, you don't know. There's a refractometer. Everybody should know what this is at this stage, but if you don't, here it is. We put a little drop of milk on it and we measure the quality of the colostrum of the cow. Once the colostrum quality is good enough, we can feed that to the calf and hopefully get him off to the best start. And a quick mention, if you want to audit your colostrum management and your colostrum quality, get your vet involved. You can take some bloods off of calves, up to 5 days calved, check their total proteins. Now, again, if you've bought in calves and they're a little bit older than that, there is a biomedia test that will test the blood sample to see do they get enough passive transfer of good quality colostrum, good quality antibodies. So if in any doubt, get your vet involved, get some bloods taken, and you can see just where you sit on that regard. Okay, we've talked about the liquid gold, we've talked about driving up immunity, and we're looking at the seesaw principle where we want to drive immunity up and drive infection pressure down. So here we are, first thing about driving infection pressure down is biosecurity. Dip in your boots in a proper disinfectant before you come on farm. That's the vet, that's the AI man, that's the sales rep, that's everybody, including yourself. If you head off down to your buddy to have a look and see what kind of calves he has, you don't know what you're bringing back. So get your boots disinfected for everybody. That's biosecurity, that's how disease can enter. Now we're going to talk about how we can stop it from spreading if it does get on the farm. So we'll talk about cleaning and hygiene. Brilliant at the really boring stuff. This is boring, but if you're brilliant at it, you'll drive infection pressure down. So how to clean your feeding equipment. It may sound really boring, it is, but a lot of people aren't cleaning their feeding equipment properly. They've got a disinfectant and they say, okay, I've disinfected it, it's fine. But if we have a look into this feeder that's been used this morning and has been given a quick rinse, what can we see? We can see that scum. Look at it, that milk scum there, that lipid layer, and the bacteria love that. All the bugs love that, they hide out underneath it. So no matter what disinfectant you throw on that, it can't get under that lipid layer to get attached or to attack the bacteria. So what we're going to talk about for cleaning is the difference between disinfection and detergent. So disinfectant kills the bugs, but we need a detergent to break down the lipid layer. And it couldn't be any simpler or any cheaper. Your basic washing up liquid breaks down that lipid layer. So get your washing up liquid mixed up with water, give it a quick scrub, that gets rid of all that scum. Your disinfection is next, your peracetic acid diluted, kills off all the bacteria. You're driving infection pressure down cheaply, easily, boringly, yes, but ultimately for the safeguarding of your calves, keeping disease to a minimum, this is the key. The same principle applies to all your feeding equipment, to your stomach tubes that we looked at earlier on. That colostrum is jam-packed full of fats. So the layer of lipid inside the tube in particular can build up, and bacteria loves and bugs love surviving in that. So you need to get your detergent in to break that down, then your disinfection in the top after every single feed. And again, and we'll cover it in a little while when we're talking about stomach tubes and feeding equipment. If there is any sick animals, make sure you have separate ones, because as good as we go for cleaning and disinfectant, we can't be 100% all the time. So try and keep those separate too. Okay, so we've talked about biosecurity and buying in calves. We're going to have a quick look at this calf to see what can I do to buy in a healthy calf to prevent him spreading disease. Let's have a look at this bull calf here. What are we looking at? Pneumonia is the biggest issue on farm for people who buy in calves. This guy breathing nice and easily, no heavy panting, clean tail, no drool, no wetness around the mouth, eyes bright, no runny eye, no nasal discharge out of the nose, in particular no snotty, gunky nasal discharge. And one thing that I suppose it's a tip from older farmers would note, if you want to seize a calf, okay, you pinch him around his trachea, around his windpipe, one quick pinch. If he's had pneumonia or he's under a little bit of pressure, he'll let out a cough, and you'll know then, okay, maybe this isn't the calf I want on my farm. Okay, so we had a quick look at how to avoid bringing in a potential sick calf into your herd. Now we're looking at the calf environment in the calf shed. Whether you're calving cows or whether you're calf to beef, it's pretty much the same. Here's where your calf ends up when he arrives onto your farm. So what are we thinking of? The first thing we're looking at is the deep straw bed they arrive into. This needs to be clean, it needs to be dry. And look, it might sound boring again, but the kneel test is the key. You get down on your knees, in the middle of the pen, you get back up again and you have a look and see are they wet. Mine are bone dry. It's dry here all the way down to the concrete. That's what you're looking at, because calves get into the deep straw and they nest and they snuggle up in it and they get the straw up around them. So if it's dry on top, super, but if it's wet underneath, well then your calf is actually lying in a wet environment, which is absolutely no good to them at all. While we're on the wet, and we'll talk about the cold, all these calves here, they're in the lap of luxury really. Calf jackets on, just overhead here, an infrared lamp, which they're not bothering with today because look, temperatures are pretty good. Calves, once the environmental temperature goes below 10 degrees, they start to burn energy off their own backs to try and keep warm. So it's very important, like realistically you're looking at up into April, there's going to be fluctuations in temperature, it's going to get really, really cold some nights, it's going to be warm some days. How do we keep them warm? Deep straw bed, infrared lamps, calf jackets and extra milk. We'll touch on the extra milk shortly. But again, we're back to if you don't measure, you don't know. Let's have a quick look here. I mean, Lidl's Finest, your humidity and your temperature. Today it's 11.6. Ideal temperature for your calf to thrive in and to be comfortable in. And again, we're driving down infection pressure. Stress is one of the greatest avenues of the gateways for infection to come in. If calves are cold, they're going to be stressed. And while we're in the calving environment here as well, what else is going to stress them? Air movement, ventilation. What you want is you want a nice exchange of air, but not a draft. Again, we want to get down to calf level. Up here where we are, I can feel a slight movement of air. There's some doors open. It's a nice, fresh day. But down at calf level, where I'm right down here beside them, there's no straw moving. This calf is nestled in nicely. There's no wind affecting him. There's no draft or there's no breeze affecting him. So he's not stressed, not cold. You couldn't ask for any better. Okay, we've had a look at our calves and how to keep them warm, how to keep them healthy, how to keep them happy. Let's talk about the most important thing of all, which is milk or milk replacer. I suppose to start, it's worth saying, calves grow on litres of milk. They don't go on guidelines or ideas, they grow on litres. So whether it's milk replacer or whole milk, you've got to give it to them for the calf to grow. And what are we looking at? Like the standard used to be 4.5, 5 litres a day. We all know now that's the bare maintenance. If the stress comes on, the temperature drops, we're up in litres. So your guidelines for milk replacer, 6.25, 5 litres a day. Your guidelines for whole milk, people are talking about feeding, I get away with 5, 6 litres. In reality, like the calves behind us that are born at 40 kilos, that are growing every day, the more milk you put into them, the better. These guys here are drinking 4 litres in the morning, 4 litres in the evening of whole milk, and they're not batting an eyelid. They'd take more if they got it. And I suppose the one concern everybody has is, farmers in particular, will we give them a scour by giving them too much milk? These calves are all less than 5 days old. Now is the time to push milk into them, because their abomasum, where the milk goes in, it's nice and stretchy. It'll expand right now. So the more milk you put in there, the more the abomasum will expand, the more it'll allow it to hold later on. I suppose the mistake people make is they put them on a low amount of milk at the start. Next thing, all of a sudden, 3 weeks in, it's starting to get cold, it's Paddy's Day, temperatures are dropping, let's feed them an extra 2 litres. But that abomasum can't expand, the milk gets pushed through, the fats don't get digested properly, they get scoured. So it's not the milk that's caused the scour, it's the management 3 weeks earlier that's caused the scour. So if you want your calf to grow and grow well, and look, at the price of calves this year, the more you put into them, the more you're going to get out of them. So the more milk you put in earlier the better, the more return on investment you'll get. Okay, we've talked about milk feeding, and look, I know it's early, but let's look 10, 12 weeks down the line when we're looking at weaning some of these calves, because it's a dirty word now, a dirty phrase, but let's talk about summer scour syndrome, how to avoid it possibly. Weaning is key, so we have to start working on weaning now, not in 10, 12 weeks time. And what do we need to work on weaning? We need fresh, clean water, access from the very, very get-go. If you think of the calf, 4 stomachs, the milk goes into the little one, the abomasum, everything else that it's going to eat, the concentrate, the forage, straw, that's all going to its big stomach, the rumen. And when it drinks water, that goes in there as well. It needs fresh water for the rumen to fill up a little bit, to get those bacteria going, to digest all that stuff. And look, the calves are going to start nibbling like this guy nibbling at straw already. Important to point out the difference between forage and roughage. This is roughage. Scratches the inside of the rumen, but there's no feed value in it really. It just gets the rumen to develop, gets the wall of the rumen scratched. Talk about roughage, that's the roughage. Talk about forage then, silage, dry silage, hay. When a calf eats some of that, it actually mimics what it's going to be doing with grass later on. It gets the rumen bacteria to start getting going, it kicks them off, so that when they get out to grass, it's not a shock to the system about what they're taking in. The rumen has already developed, they're eating that forage, the fatty acids are in there, the bacteria is there, the rumen environment is already there. The other thing I suppose worth mentioning about weaning is concentrate feeding. There's a focus, we need them on 1.5, we need them on 2 kilos when we wean them. I think we need to take a little step back, and it's more about the volume they can eat over the period of time before they wean, as opposed to building them up really, really quickly to weaning them on 2 kilos. So if these calves, they'll have access to concentrate tomorrow, 5 days old. They mightn't eat much, they'll nibble a little bit, but they have water as well. Their rumen is already starting. Replace it every day, fresh little bit of concentrate. By the time it comes to weaning these lads, they'll be well able to eat 2 kilos and more if they got it. Okay, so we're going to wrap it up, and I'm looking forward to questions with Tommy and Hannah after when we're finished. A couple of top tips, I suppose. Look, here we are 12 months later. This is what you're looking at, and this is what you're hoping for. Healthy, thriving, really, really good condition beef animals that you've bought and that you've reared yourself, and you've put a lot of effort and work and a lot of money into too. Let's not forget that. So from a top tips point of view, here's some of the things that we want to start to concentrate on. Feed them enough of milk. You'll never ever ever get as good growth rates out of as little input as giving your calves extra milk when you buy them in. Talk to your vet, whoever your vet is, they know your farm. Talk to them about vaccination programs. Make sure you talk to them about biosecurity and the disinfectant you use, the proper one. Be brilliant at the boring stuff. Be brilliant at the hygiene, brilliant at the bedding, nice straw bed. Remember back when we were looking at, be brilliant at keeping your calves warm and keeping them stress-free. Because look, they're an investment. And the more you put into them now, the more likely you're to get really, really valuable animals like this in 12 months' time.